I was catching up with a friend yesterday after having not talked to them in a few weeks. We were just playing Minecraft, just kind of catching up on each other's lives for a little bit. And both of us very quickly noticed that at some point we were pretty much just talking about work and stuff that had been going on at work. Because both of us this summer are doing internships, different locations, but what the heck. But yeah, and then that honestly got me thinking a little bit because while we were talking, we started joking about how we're getting so old, like the fact that we're talking about work, like this just shows that we're starting to get a little bit older, which on the surface sounds kind of funny because both of us are only 19. Like the two of us are still very young, but at the same time, I think in the past year especially, there's been a lot of changes in my life. I moved away from my family for the first time. Now I'm living alone, like truly alone for the first time. I'm actually employed and have real responsibilities with actually making money for the first time. And it's all been a little bit weird because I think most of it stems from just how quickly this change has happened. A year ago at this time, I was traveling with my family for the summer, and it was, I guess, like one of the most insane summers I've had, just because we went to so many different places and traveled internationally for 2 months. Which before this, I had only really been to two countries outside the United States my entire life, that being Mexico and Japan. And now all of a sudden, it's 1 year later, and my family is traveling without me. Because I'm living in New York City for the summer, I'm working, and I can't really just take 2 weeks off, whatever. And at the same time last year, I remember, well, not exactly the same time last year, but like 11 months ago, so near the tail end, or actually, no, 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 it was about the same time last year. I was in China hanging out with my grandparents pretty much every single day, and I think I have a uniquely close relationship with my grandparents for someone whose grandparents don't live in the US, they live in China, both sets of grandparents. Because they alternated like the visits to the United States and lived with us for like 6 months at a time. So it would be my maternal grandparents would visit for 6 months, and then my paternal grandmother would visit for 6 months. My grandfather couldn't make it because he has a bad hip. And it's like very weird because I absolutely adore my grandparents. And they also adore me a lot, especially my maternal grandmother. And this year, my parents and my sister are visiting them, and they went around China, had a ton of fun, saw some really beautiful places, and I don't know, it just made me feel a little bit weird because I'm sitting here right now in my apartment working on stuff. Well, not really working because I'm playing Minecraft right now on my lunch break, but like just kind of almost in this routine, which I've talked about before, getting trapped in a routine, getting trapped in a little bit of a monotony, if you will. But it just feels weird, and I know part of it is definitely because I just simply miss my grandparents. Like, I wish I could be there with my family right now. I wish I could be traveling with them, and I wish I could be, just just with my family, honestly, because my grandparents, I really value my time with them, not just because I don't see them that often, but also because, to put it bluntly, their time is limited. The number of years that they have left on this earth is very limited, and I don't think I ever appreciated that enough when I was a kid. Because back then they were still also pretty young. Like they for grandparents, I would say they are pretty young because they're in their early 70s, whereas I feel like most grandparents nowadays are like in their 80s or something. I honestly don't know for sure, but like back when I was a kid, they were in their early 60s. Like when they left to go back to China for the last time, because they stopped visiting by the time I was 10. Just because I think at some point their health, traveling so much wasn't doing any favors for their health, and also just because they thought I had grown up enough to the point where they felt confident that we would be fine without them. The last time I saw them, they were in their, I want to say, mid 60s, or no, not like even on the earlier side of 60. But then last summer when I visited them, I noticed that like their hair had gone a lot grayer. They had a lot more wrinkles. My maternal grandmother, who I'm the closest with, has had a few health problems over the course of the year. So she's had a few health scares, and I remember just like even a year ago, just it felt like we were almost seeing each other on borrowed time. And now that I can't see her, and I don't know, like, truthfully, there are times where I don't know if I'll be able to see her again, just because sometimes her health fluctuates a little bit. And it's just like, I don't know, man. I really don't know how to say this aside from just it sucks. Like, it sucks that I'm not able to see my family for months at a time now. It's still a feeling that I thought I would be okay with, just because I've always been someone who, doesn't necessarily need to see someone every single day. But now it's like I'm older. The time that I have with my family is just going to get more and more limited. And it also just doesn't help that every single time I talk to my mom, she talks about how much she misses me. Like, it just sucks, man. It just sucks because I feel like I've taken a lot of the time that I had with the people that are closest with me for granted. And now, with my family, like they're still young, they're still healthy, but like with my grandparents, it feels like my time with them is running out. And I know, like, instead of trying to dwell on this, I should appreciate the time I have left with them. But at the same time, I need to acknowledge it. It's just a scary feeling that I don't know when I will be able to see them again. I don't know if I will be able to see them again. Because I think for the first time in my life, the people that I actually grew up with, the people that have been there for me since I was born, their time is slowly, or not slowly, but very quickly ticking away. I remember back in 2016 where one of my great grandparents passed away, and it was on my mother's side. It was her grandfather who she was very close with. I remember she was just like sobbing for like she was just an absolute mess for days. And I'm just like, part of me is extremely scared, um, that because I know sooner or later that is going to happen to me, and it's probably going to be a lot sooner than I think. I think my mom was lucky. She had the luxury that her grandparents lived all the way until she was in her 30s. But for me, like, I'm not even 20 yet I'm already kind of hung up on this feeling of when is the next time I'm going to be able to see my grandparents? Will I be able to see my grandparents again? Because honestly, even in the next few years, there aren't a lot of opportunities for me, because I'm in a position now where basically every single summer I need to try to, like, it's super important for me to get an internship aside from, I guess, the summer after my senior year of college, but that's an entire 3 years away. A lot of things can change in 3 years, especially when it comes to your grandparents' health. Like 3 years is that time is not guaranteed for them. Not nearly to the same extent that it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So I honestly don't even know where I'm trying to go with this, and I'm honestly not even sure why I'm being so vulnerable. Like usually I would never be this vulnerable, not even with the people close with me. But like I mean the people close with me are really the only ones that watch this channel. And I think it's also just liberating sometimes to just yap. And I know like it's nice to have someone respond, but I think when these things like when it's more of a I need to just get this feeling off of my chest type of conversation, I think something is even easier if you're just talking to yourself and like recording it. I don't know. It's almost like therapeutic, I would describe it. But man, like my last video I talked about how, wasting my like quote unquote wasting your teenage years is not necessarily a bad thing, just because the fact that there is some type of waste that serves as a consequence that will motivate you to not take time for granted in in your later parts of your life, and how I felt lucky that I had only wasted my teenage years rather than something like my 20s, my 30s, or whatever. But I think this is one of the exceptions to that rule. Because your grandparents, I mean, they're only going to get older as you get older. Shocker. But yeah, I don't know. Because last year, I went back to China for the first time in 15 years. I met a ton of family members who I hadn't met, who I hadn't seen since I was 3, almost, not almost all of them, every single one of them I had already forgotten about. Like, I didn't remember a single one of them. There would be people that came up to me being like, oh, I remember when you were like 2 feet tall and like held you, and I was like, what the fuck, like who are you, like I do not know who you are, like that's cool. And it's just, I think it's a weird feeling knowing that you have a blood relation to someone but also not knowing them on a personal level at all, like them being a complete stranger to you, but you have this weird connection of, hey, we are from the same bloodline. I honestly don't even know where I'm going with this video. I feel like a lot of my videos recently have been like that, but yeah. So I think then really the point of this video that I'm trying to make is to not take your time for granted. And this sounds very obvious, and I know a lot of people say it for like, your personal time for granted. So like always stay locked in, that type of stuff. But I think even more importantly is do not take the time you have with other people for granted, because I think ultimately I talked about how to live a rich life, and I think one of the best ways and one of the really only ways to effectively do that is by how you spend your time with other people, how you impact other people, how you are impacted by other people. Because my grandparents, I'm very proud to say, have been some of the most positive influences in my life. And now my time with them is very limited. And it hurts, I'm not gonna lie. Like every single time I call my grandma on FaceTime, she starts crying because she misses me so much. And every single time I have to fight back tears as well, because I also miss her a lot. I mean, shit, I'm fighting back tears right now just talking about it. But yeah, I don't know, it's tough, I think, especially just because I don't have easy access to my grandparents. Not even just a distance access, but also a language barrier access. My spoken Chinese has deteriorated so much since I was a kid because I haven't used it regularly, because I mean, I at home, whenever my parents speak to me in Chinese, but I reply back to them in English, and because of that, my ability to understand Chinese is a lot better than my spoken Chinese. And I didn't realize just how bad it had gotten until last year when I went back and I could barely communicate with my grandparents, and it just hurts. I've made an effort to try to get a little bit better. Like now, whenever my parents talk to me, I try to respond in Chinese whenever I can, unless it's like a deep discussion with my mom, because even at its best, my Chinese was never better than that of like an elementary schooler's. So, but now it's like no better than maybe a toddler's, which is honestly sad. But I feel like I'm starting to ramble a little bit, but really, I think part of the reason I made this video is just because I want to get these feelings on my chest. And it's very weird for me to be so vulnerable about it. Like, usually this is not a topic I would bring up at all. But I think just today, like, my dad was sending me a lot of pictures of just family photos. And I FaceTimed my family yesterday, while all of them were in China, my grandparents were there. And it just, like, it got me thinking. And yeah, I guess as a TLDR then, what I want to say is, do not take your time with your loved ones for granted, especially when you're young and they are also young and have the energy to do things. And I know, like, this is kind of a message that no one under the age of like 15 probably would understand, but like even then, I feel like once the older you are, the more each year matters, which is ironic because I know a lot of people, like, when you're young, each year matters so much just because proportionally it's a much larger chunk of your life, and then once you reach a certain age, it feels like time is almost flying. Like each year feels like it's going by faster than the next because it's a smaller proportion relative to the rest of your life. And then now I feel like the reverse is true once you're older. Once you're older, each year becomes so much more disproportionately valuable because you don't know how much time you have left. Like the time you have left is it is valuable. Which honestly I think goes for a lot of things, like money, for example. I guess like when you start making money because you have less of it, each individual dollar is more valuable. Then as you're at the peak of your career, the money is flowing a little bit more. Each individual dollar matters less, and then once you're in retirement, like because you no longer have an income source, each dollar matters more and more each day as you spend more of it, and your assets start to go to decrease on the whole. I don't know. I feel like I'm really mincing my thoughts right now. I'm kind of yapping about unrelated things, and it honestly feels like I'm just trying to extend this video. So I think I'll just kind of end it with the message of really, really treasure the time you have with people, especially those of your family. Because this is something that I feel like I didn't realize how valuable it was until I didn't have it anymore. So, yeah. But I will see you guys in the next video.